Victoria, the council meeting, March 13th, 2023. We call the meeting to order. With their attendance. Disclosures of conflict of interest. If there's something that comes up later, you can declare it at that time. The approval of February 6th and 27 minutes and an amendment of January 30th meeting minutes.
Move we approve them as amended.
Seconder? Any discussion? All four? Opposed? Think we're good?
These will be available to the public after
Yeah.
today, because someone had asked me, and then somebody asked me, Rochelle had asked me about the recording of it, and I said that we didn't get the first recording, so this will be up there after this.
Yeah.
Okay. And the minutes will be available to the text.
And I think we have the January minutes up there now, I believe.
Yeah, I don't think so. Somebody that, when they asked me, I didn't know.
Yeah.
They looked for them and I hadn't, so I told them that we were amending something, so probably was the January ones were amending. And so it wouldn't be up there.
Yeah, because I think we approved them at the last meeting, but
Okay.
there was a change in the council, the committee composition on it was the difference.
Delegations? Do you have any? No? Okay. Unfinished business. A fire service meeting follow-up.
That's just for people that attended to comment on.
It was a very good, it was the same presentation pretty well as what we got at the UMNV meeting, except we had the advantage of having the fire chiefs and firemen from a lot of the area. And I think it's a commendation of our fire chief that he was the only one who knew where what our level was and everything like that. And several of them had not completed it, so they had not completed that survey that comes out from the underwriters. And because of that, they pay a higher rate of tax of insurance. And because our fire chief had done paperwork and sent it in, then ours was there, he knew the level that we had. So I think it's, we have to commend our chief and that for the work they do, for doing the paperwork, doing the things that needed to be done, so.
And our rate is
Yeah.
good, like,
Yeah.
very good, really.
Yeah.
Okay. 6B, strategic plan, update on survey results, committee mandates.
Yeah. Sounds good. Got, guess we have a slide for each one of those. The survey, we've already got over 35 people filled out the survey online or virtual one just by the being in the newsletter a couple of times. People are clicking on it and filling it out each week. We're picking up some more. We're going to do a mail out to everyone within the municipality, a paper mail out, which people could either fill out the survey and bring it back in, drop it off, or they can click on just go online and click on the link and do it. And we're going to print up some copies and put around to some of the local businesses. Like I like the idea that was suggested about the hair places in town, because those people, a lot of talking is on there, so it'd be kind of neat to see some of the conversations we can get going on those establishments and give people a chance for feedback and things. So that'll be kind of neat. So we're get those out. We want them all in by the April 15th, so we get another month yet. So we're sort of hoping in the end that we'll get about 100 of these in, what we're hoping. And then that'll give council some really good feedback on what maybe is out there for issues that the community has, and sort of see that, maybe one thing that if one person has an issue doesn't necessarily mean it's an issue for the whole community. There may be something that 20 people have the same issue with and things. So it might give council an idea of if there's any consensus on direction people like to see council go with services. And we asked people in that survey to put what area they live in also. So that might give us good information that the main concerns in the LSD area is this, the main concerns in Aroostook are that, and give us council some idea and things. So we're really, the more people we can get to fill these out, the better. And everyone on council, please feel free to go in and fill that out and put your feedback in, and then your family members know that too. So we're going to
The areas and it changed.
yeah. For sure. Yeah. So we'll get some of those out and things, and hopefully, like I said, like, you know, in the perfect world, we get 200 or 300 people fill those out, you know, in the perfect world.
Mhm.
You know, but if we get 100 or more, that'd be great too, so.
So would there be like a box that they could put them in when they fill them out there, or would you?
But we just haven't dropped them off here, or if they wanted to fill them out with the business too, we just ask them to plug them.
Yeah,
For us.
Is the QR code on there? Did we come up with a QR? code?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they can scan it.
Just scan it, yeah.
okay, good.
Yeah, we talked, I'll just confirm that, I know we talked about it with staff, but, yeah.
So I usually use theirs.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll get some more uptake on that. We're pleased with what we've got out of the gate so far. So we've been doing some research on doing the prep work for the strategic planning sessions. We've done some research as we talked about. All municipal plans end up with sort of like pillars, sort of like main areas where councils want to focus. And we've had the different ones, like sort of the core ones for a community like ours would be the infrastructure asset management, because that's a big part of what council manages. Of course, municipal services is one typical pillar, because that's one thing we do manage. And then whatever our branding is, like for us, the green initiatives thing. So it's whatever other projects and things councils wants to pursue, like is whatever lobbying the government important, is sustainable environment, financial management, is that a priority for council, tourism, economic vitality, all those different bubbles you see here, communication and marketing, and one that I sort of thought just from our discussions so far, like citizen engagement and participation, like that might be a pillar that our council may want to gravitate towards, just with the change we're going through now, that we want to engage the citizens outside the old municipality to get them more involved. But we're also concerned about the participation of people using the facilities and programs and things like that. So that might be a pillar that.
That was something we had my first year in council, we went with citizen engagement and everything,
Yeah.
but now it's a new thing because it's a new group of citizens.
Yeah, and it's different too, like the citizen engagement before, I think too, was sort of access to information, like council meetings being public, surveys and things like that, where it's now more of a higher level. So those are just some of the ones. We're doing some research on that. So sort of what we're hoping for is to give council sort of an idea of, well, here's what some other places are looking for, 4 pillars, and then sort of what we're thinking of doing is once we get the feedback from the survey that we do, we'll sort of plug the issues that we're finding under some of those pillars, just to see that, well, the community's telling us, say economic development, tourism are the big issue for people, then we'll come up with 17 people mentioned this area. If policing is one, with 30 people mentioned policing, or that type of stuff. So we'll try to see if there's areas where council can maybe clump them together and come up with how you want to address the concerns and things. So typically councils would nail those down to like 5 or 6 key areas they'd like to focus on. But the good thing about that is if council has an issue in another area, you can generally lump it back into municipal services, because everything's general municipal services. So those are kind of just some of the pillars that we've been drafting up for that. And then and in the SharePoint site, there's a list of committee mandates, and Sheldon, I think, sent an email. He put a couple in here, the mandate letter for public safety committee and the mandate letter for that. There's on here now, we already have the current mandates for the rec commission, the light board, different things like that. So I think Sheldon sort of mentioned in his thing that look after we get through the strategic planning process and council decides on the priorities and goals, and the mandate letters would sort of reflect the items in the strategic planning session too. But then again, like I mentioned, the existing ones here, so I appreciate council going to take a look at those. If anyone has any questions on them, we can,
The donation policy was going to be updated, wasn't it?
yeah, it hasn't been yet.
Hasn't been yet, okay, it needs to be.
Yes, those ones, so that was it on those.
Correspondence, 7A, NB Housing Information System.
Yeah, this is something we work with a bit with MB Housing. They were trying to do an asset management for housing in New Brunswick. They had some funding. They were up last summer and they launched a survey in the community where they're looking to do I guess research of what's available for housing in New Brunswick communities to help justify funding to develop nonprofit housing. And they're trying to establish whether there's needs in certain communities over others, and vacancy rates and things like that, number of apartments in a community, average apartment rents, so that if somebody's looking for housing, they could log in and see. So they've actually developed a website, and the links are on here, and we'll put them on our website. But they have a housing information system now that many communities have participated in. And they've got a 3-minute video. We'll put the link in also on our website. So I'll just give you, I think on the next slide, I've got, this is the Perth Andover one in that. Now we requested, I think multiple times with local apartment owners to go in and complete the survey for this. And I think we only had one multi-unit apartment owner when it actually filled out the survey. So that's, we don't have all the information that we potentially could have compared to some other areas. So basically you can go in on the website and you can search housing in different communities. And then if people, I believe if you have a vacancy in your apartment, you can post it here and it'll show that you've got a 2-bedroom or 1-bedroom or whatever is available. So they're trying to come up with a provincial system where people can look for rentals and see what the average cost of apartments are. Just from the survey, it sort of showed the cost here for a 2-bedroom at $919 and a 1-bedroom at $669 or something like that.
Here,
Yeah. From the survey that was filled out, or surveys that were filled out. And again, we only had one fill them out. We didn't get the participation we'd hoped to. So that can still be updated if we are able to get more people to complete the survey. So that's phase just it. And they've got that done for probably.
Does that show the vacancy rate? Because there is no vacancies and there are no empty apartments.
Well, when this was done, there was two available that this one landlord had at that time. Yeah.
Yeah, now there's nothing.
Yeah.
Anywhere.
Yeah, so then, and hopefully what I think what they're hoping is that this system would sort of be like, if somebody's looking to move for New Brunswick, they could sort of have a spot to be able to go in and see what's available and see what the cost of living is in certain areas. And sort of, and they're putting this information into like the median household income for our area. Like I think that's specific to our area, not to the provincial average. So that'll vary from community to community. So it's kind of neat, the initiative that the housing, MB Housing has gone ahead with. And hopefully we'll get some more participation in it. Hopefully it'll end up being a good tool for them. And in part two, they were hoping to see if there's, through this tool, if they could justify funding for more units in certain areas. Like they'd like to be able to show that there's these units, they're all booked and things like that. So hopefully it'll get to that point. So
It'd almost be worth our while to hire somebody for a couple hours to go and visit each of the unit owners and get information from it.
yeah, I think some are reluctant to share the information.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. No, so that's neat.
number 8, reports, these 4 department reports.
Yeah, that's included in your kit there. It's been pretty quiet for a lot of things during the year. Our metric ton for waste collection is up. Right now, we're unable to get the stats from the LSD because their contract's still mixed with the I guess the outlying areas. So this is still just the old, or I guess the Perth Andover parish numbers. The large bin recycling at the schools up 3% over the year, but overall recycling's down 2%. So we're a bit of a slow start to the year, but hopefully we'll catch up on that. And particularly that, the power consumption purchases total is down 9.6% for our customers, which is good to save them a little money. And I think people that burn wood have saved a lot of wood this winter, I think. They've not got a lot of cold days and things, but it's funny, I think last year was the exact opposite. I think we're up after January and February. I think we're up 10%. This year we're down, so it all works out. And then just the next page of that, just sort of the things we're working on, of course, the reform action items, working on the annual action plan for employees, the strategic plan prep, audit work. I believe that Lois and Jamie have gotten pretty much the final stuff for the auditors now to get that finalized. Flood mitigation project, the community survey, orientation sessions, the rate design hearing coming up. One thing staff have talked about, some other communities done, and actually Councillor Shaw sent me something on it, about communities are doing 4-day work week pilots, and I think there's 8 or 10 in the province that have done it, where they go basically 4 10-hour days, and they've done it. Some places have done a bit different, like I believe one community went, their office only open 4 days a week, like Monday to Thursday and closed Friday, where other communities have said, let's stagger the employees, so you're still open 5 days, but since the staff are in the office, let's open a little longer. So instead of being open, say 8 to 4:30, we'd be open, say 8 to 5:30, 5 days a week. So the office, we know the employees would only be working 4 days a week. The office hours would be more accessible for people. So staff expressed some interest in it. So we told them, and I was pleased when Sheldon sent it to me. He saw it somewhere, that the staff are sort of would like me to take a proposal to council to try something for a 6-month period, just to see if it works or not. The reviews, one community, I believe it was Sackville, they had the university did a sort of a survey study before they started their pilot, and then did a study after the pilot period was over. And from what I can see so far, the results from the employees and the municipalities have been very positive, and they've continued them on. So we'll see if it's we'll
As
look at
long
all
as we got the hours in.
Would that work okay for would be great for office staff, but the boys that are out about.
Yeah, we'd have to. Yeah, in some communities, I was wondering about public works in the summertime, but what other places have done, the public works guys liked it. They worked 4 longer days, and they had like a lot of places now will work little longer days and take Friday afternoon off. But I think what other places found, well, why bother just coming in for Friday morning? Why don't we just work a little bit longer those 4 days and not have to come in call on the Friday? So it's one of those things that kind of creeps, that if you're taking Friday afternoon off, then it's like, well, geez, we nice to have a whole day off. And then once you go to a 4-day week, maybe it'll end up being, well, I'd like to leave early Thursday. I don't know. Right.
Well, sometimes when it's hot in the summer, especially starting in the summer, they probably start early
Yes.
anyway. the boys.
Yeah, and we've always allowed flexible hours, but I think one thing that I kind of like about this idea is that maybe it gets us more on the same schedule. Like you have people sharing shifts and things like that. And so hopefully we'll see. So I'm hoping to have a proposal for council at the end of the week. I know Justine had a talk with the city of St. John today on there. So we'll bring something for council to consider maybe trying a pilot thing. So
I think remember she was doing this.
Yeah.
They've been doing it in some provinces for quite a while.
Yeah. No, so that, and I work on tenders for the summer. I with Philip last week about the tender for the well house and the Rustic. They've had a request up there. They need a UV protection on their well. So we're getting prices on that to get that installed, hopefully sooner rather than later. I'd like to get some of the tenders out, as soon as possible for some of the stuff that we want to get done, and make sure we don't run into supply chain issues or things like that. And of course, the spring EMO prep that I'll talk about later on. I got several slides on that. So that sort of things we're working on.
Fire department report.
Yeah.
And that the stats, I think Philip was saying to me today that we always tracked inside and outside fires. Of course, he had to go back and change what's inside and outside. outside now, so the number of LSD calls will be different now than what we had before. So the current month, calls was 7, there were 19 year to date. So you can sort of see the type of calls we get. We had 7 motor vehicle in January, so that's it. And there's a couple of motions later on regarding equipment and membership for the fire department under motions later on.
Okay,
Yeah, no
bylaws?
No.
Okay, motions and notice of meeting.
Yeah, this first one's just a notice of motion, and this is for council's first time that I've talked to council about this. I posted a couple documents, I believe, in the SharePoint. Village of New Maryland raised an issue in the planner that the municipality uses Frank Flag, and it's our licensed planner that we use as a consultant. They pointed out in the new Community Planning Act that it states that villages have a rural plan, not a municipal plan. And Village of New Maryland has raised some issues with that. And I believe I put a copy of the letter that they sent to the minister on it.
Correct. There's another.
Yeah, so basically the sort of what it gets down to is that would council want to recommend the amendment to the act to allow villages to choose to have the option of either developing a rural plan or a municipal plan. The way that it's written now, they don't necessarily have that option. And I think it potentially might have been just an oversight at the time when the act was written, because some municipalities are a bit more organized and have a bit more structure to them and different services compared to some smaller communities that are more rural and less services and things like that. So that's something for council to consider. And if council thinks it's a good thing, that I would draft up a motion for the next council meeting, and then we could pass it and send it along. So if anyone has any thoughts on that, or
I think it's a good idea because I think ours would be better with the municipal plan or the rural plan. With different needs.
I think we should be striving to be, a village, not rural. Anyway, I think the whole idea
Yeah.
we could build that one.
and we have now the village adopted a municipal plan last time.
Yeah.
And so you're right, it makes sense to. And of course, too, we're one of the few places in New Brunswick that has an electric utility.
Yeah.
There's only 3 in the province and things, so.
The other 2 are city.
Yeah. So, okay, so I'll draft something up then.
Motions?
Yeah.
So this is for,
Required. So.
423 fire department membership, Timothy Broad,
I move it. Accept that.
and the seconder,
Who seconded? Todd?
any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay. 523, fire department equipment purchase, truck box.
I'll move.
Seconder,
Damn.
okay. Any discussion? Any questions about this truck box?
In the kit, I've got the actual specs on.
Yeah.
It's up there.
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Carried. New business. Spring EMO Riverwatch.
Yeah, the province is having a press conference now to announce the launch of Spring River Watch, and we normally naturally just do ours at the same time we start up. We've updated our partner list, so we do, with all the players or partners that we have in that, like, for example, RCMP, DNR, the hospital, the Department of Education, those type of people that we may need to work with or contact. Justine's been, had that looked after. And we do a lot of our stuff through the newsletter. One thing we did this year, we've installed our own river gauge. We're able to down at the lower boat landing here, where you put boats in with the lift station across the road. We're able to put our own gauge in to be able to tell the elevation in the river. And the good thing about that is it tells us the direction it's going, up or down, things like that. MB Power has a gauge just above the community. But last year during the spring freshet, they had some issues with it and went down for a while. And which isn't a comfortable feeling. We've been kind of spoiled with the MB Power one. It'll send out to our EMO staff an email every time the water elevation changes 1/10 of a foot. And so what's really cool about that is before staff were home at night, you'd be wondering, oh geez, what's the ice doing now? Where's it at? Where now it sends, depending on what's going on with the river, it sends an email could be every 2 minutes to every 10 minutes or something like that. So and then you get to see the elevation of where it is too. So you know that say a bad number's 81 meters, or this doesn't feet, but it gives you an idea of where it's at all the time. So so we've got a lot better tools for management now than we used to. So we do have our own gauge installed. And what our goal is, what we'd like to do is be able to transfer that data from our river gauge to our website. So when you see the bridge cam on the website, you can see the actual elevation also. But we've been having a bit of a time with IT issues on getting the information of our SCADA system to the web page. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll get that sorted out, because I think it'd be good for the public to be able to have, it's good to have that information, but also good for the public to be able to have access to it also. So that would sort of be our dream goal, is to have that showing there too. And then we could have beside it sort of a little graph that says, water crosses the road at this elevation, so people could see, well, we're 3 feet below that, or 7 feet, or 6 inches, or whatever it is. But it'd be neat to just try making that information public for the first year. Like one of the concerns we always have is sort of the term disaster tourism. That once the water level gets high, then everybody wants to come and see, and then you have a whole bunch of people in town at the time, and you prefer they not be in town. So there's some issues around that we'd have to work out to see if it becomes an issue or not. But it was interesting, the presentation I went to at MB Power, they had a video they were showing other guys driving around town videotaping things, but the siren was going in town for the evacuation and things. It's like, well, why are you driving around in town if people are supposed to be evacuated type thing? But so that's interesting. So and of course our bridge cram is extremely popular. That I think 1/4 of our hits throughout the year during flood season, it's all with bridge cam. Just see the ice elevation. So next thing, if you want, I'll just slide right into it. How we do especially where we have some new counselors this time around. The Emergency Operations Center, how it's operated, we have staff that are trained, and we work with our partners, RCMP, DNR, to man the operations center. So it's a standardized system. So if you go to fight a forest fire out west, or anywhere in the province, or if you go to NEOC, the trend is to go towards these ICS systems. We've got staff trained. I think we've had a couple of counselors take some of the information sessions on it, just for knowledge on it.
They had she sent us a link there a few years ago, and we could go in and take the actual training and write the test and everything.
Yes, 100 something.
Yeah, 100 and is there 200?
Yeah.
I think there's a couple that we did.
And so just a bit of an overview of how it works. There's emergency center commander, which in our case is myself. And then we'd have the information officer, which is Justine, and then we'd have different people involved with each one of these, depending on what the what the event is. And the thing about the ICS system is that you only build up your staff depending on the level you're at with the crisis. Like say, for example, if we don't have a policing issue, then we don't have the police in. But once we go to do an evacuation, then you would bring somebody in from the RCMP or DNR into the OC and they would work out of there also. And we have phones all set up for each department. Each would have their own phone, their phone line, things like that. If we had to have the hospital there, the hospital would come. In the past, we used to have the hospital there in the manor, depending on evacuation issues or what we were doing. So that's the basic format of it. And then we plug staff in to these or RCMP or DNR members. Now, council's role during a spring flood is declaring a state of emergency is a role of council. Council has to have a meeting to declare the state of emergency. So once the state of emergency is declared, that allows the OC to operate under some different rules and allows us to do the mandatory evacuations and things like that. And also, there's always been talk to, does it allow access then to federal funding after the event? So it's always good to declare a state of emergency once you want to do, especially a mandatory evacuation. Then we would have council come in and say, look, we have to have a meeting. We need you to declare a state of emergency. There's a form that we fill out and you date it from this date. We would date it maybe for like a 3 or 5 day period. And then at the end of those 3 days, we reevaluate it and council would say yes or no. We'd extend it or not, depending on what's going on. So that's basically the role of council. And of course, depending on the severity of an event too, there's lots of work to go around, like especially in the recovery phase, depending on what's going on. But
You have some things in place now that protects us a little bit better, like the system with the schools, but where if the water, because we had an issue, we almost had a disaster with the 2012. And so that's.
Yeah. There's essentially, I've got a couple of slides. You know, the ICS system, it sort of helped safety and first responders, you know, their safety first, achievement of response objectives and efficient use of resources. So if we have the DNR guys in here along with the RCMP, that we make sure people aren't duplicating services and things like that. So it's excellent too, because a lot of the RCMP and the DNR guys all have training in this ICS system. So it's pretty seamless when people walk in and do it with us. So here's sort of our triggers that we've had in place for quite a few years now. And a lot of these come in, Sheila mentioned with the schools, for example. So these here are sort of when we go to advance monitoring at some point, we would announce that we're going to enhance monitoring. We'd alert the MO committee, we communicate with residents once we've gone to the enhanced monitoring. The flood watch issued by GMB, we communicate that with residents. So basically there's different trigger points along with it. And once the water level gets up so high, we would do things with our municipal equipment and first responders. Of course, one of the issues we have with the fire department is we service both sides of the river. So we'd have to get equipment staged at a location on the per side to, in the event of a flood, that they could actually get the fires and things like that. So there's a certain point where we trigger that, of course, to get things out of our buildings and our assets. And once water crosses the road to Tovik, schools are closed when there's an ice jam in place. This one was one of the critical things that Councilor Cummings mentioned after the flood in 2012. Now over the time, the schools have been extremely cooperative on that, but other times it's sort of the longer it gets away in the past, the more we forget about it. And we have to sometimes remind the schools that, look, this isn't an option. That once the waters cross that road with ice jam place, schools are closed and things like that. So there's staff changes and things like that. So that's one of the issues we have. And then once we get to an elevation of 78 meters, we'd activate the OC. And that's a lower level of the hospital section. I'd have to update that now to see if there's actually, if that section is even there anymore, or the lower level of the existing building, what that elevation is now. I'm not quite sure if that's the number or not. And then water crosses roads from Perth over at the 78 to 41. So you can sort of see that with having the river gauges, it gives us really good information. And we know the elevations of where it possibly could cross and things like that. And as always, once spring comes, we encourage businesses and property owners to make any efforts to flood proof their businesses and properties that have stuff in your basements, to take them out and get them to higher ground and things like that. So that's sort of some of those things. So we've announced when we're going to do the enhanced monitoring, and that depends on a lot of things, the weather, the flow, that kind of thing, and the partial activation of the OC and then full activation. The communication plans, we do email to stakeholders. We have about 375 people on an email list, and anybody can get on, where we send out EMO updates as required. Sometimes they might be starting out, depending on the event. It might be only one email a week, but once the ice jams up, it could be an email every day. Then it could end up being 2 emails a day, to, depending on what's happening, it could be 3, maybe 4 updates during the day, depending on what's going on. And those emails go out to all of our strategic partners and any resident that wants to be on it. So, and then of course we do direct contact with our stakeholders by phone and email also. And so those are kind of the updates for the communication plan for that. So I guess with that, if anyone has any questions on the EMO stuff, I just want to give council just a quick Coles notes version of it. And hopefully it won't be an issue and council won't have to deal with the aftermath of a flood. But
Next is our funding, isn't it? The DFA, you remember that?
yeah, the changes to the this was sent out to council a while ago. That the province announced changes to the DFA funding for businesses and some of the residents, which on the outside they come up with a $200,000 limit that can be reached. So I had a few questions that I sent off to the province. Will previous claims be considered in the $200,000 cap, or is cap starting from today? And the response was the cap starts from today. Now, any business that has a claim now, if they've had a claim in the past, it won't impact their amount they can get in that 200,000, which is good that the previous doesn't impact that. But the downside for businesses is in the past, there was no cap for businesses. If the business had X amount in damage, they got reimbursed for it. But now they put a cap of 200,000 lifetime for property. So the downside of that is, for if somebody has a $1 million building that gets $300,000 for the damage, they'll get 200,000 to fix it up. But any future damage, they're on their own, same thing. So that's certainly a downside for the business community. And the $200,000 cap is for structural only, which is good. The contents are calculated outside that cap. I believe that's how I read into that to that answer. So that was good that the contents don't count. And then I asked a question about residential properties that have signed a waiver. If they signed a waiver in place, would they now qualify under the DFA program? And Lisa's response was that if they've already signed a waiver in place on the land registry, this waiver will remain and not be eligible for funding in DFA. So the question that I was asking there was that if somebody had previously, they made some properties, if they stayed, sign a waiver, that if ever flooded again, you wouldn't get financial support. So the question I had was, well, now that you have a higher limit of the 200,000, which is significantly higher than the 80,000 that we had, would they qualify for additional funding? And they come back and said no, but if they have that registered on the deed, their SOL, once the when the next event happens, so to speak. So that was, I was sort of hoping to get a different answer to that one. Although I can certainly see the government's perspective that they offered them the property owner at the time an option to relocate or take a buyout, and they chose not to. They wanted to stay, and they, basically they signed off on the opportunity. So, and then I was asking you, is there any changes to the amount of damages required to activate the DFA program in New Brunswick? No, the threshold for activation has not changed. So one of the concerns our council had a few years ago is that if we had a flood in our community, especially now that we've taken a lot of properties outside the flood zone now, a lot of buildings have been destroyed. I believe in New Brunswick, off the top of my head, it seemed to me it was like a $3 million cap to kick the DFA program in. So say, for example, if we were the only flood in the spring in Perth Andover, and we had 10 businesses that all had $200,000 worth of damage, then that wouldn't meet the threshold of the $3 million. So that was one of the concerns that we have is well, what if it's not to that $3 million cap? What happens then? Hopefully we'd never have another flood, and you wouldn't wish ill on other people just so we could get support. But I would hope that the province we'd ask the province at the time, would they make sure that there was provincial funding to support those businesses? Because again, if we had to have businesses with $2 million worth of damage and say, well, no, look, sorry, there's no program, you're on your own, that wouldn't go over well. And we sent council sent a very, direct letter to the minister at the time, and basically the response I think we got back was, geez, you have a good question, we'll get back to you. And,
Information coming later.
Government changes.
Government changes and things. So those were sort of the questions on the changes to the DFA funding.
There was some article on that on the news tonight. There were a lot of people were complaining about the caps and things.
I'll take the after hours.
I guess I just put this on for information. While I was away, I was snowmobiling last week, and I think Sheldon reached out regarding an issue at one of our buildings. And I just, for information's sake for council and the public, is that there's an emergency after hours number for the town, and it's now 506-273. 3242, and that's on our website, and it's a 24-hour call center that we've used for years. So if you can't reach me or Justine or whatever, just call that number, and they've got the contact information for the light guys, the public works guys, and myself and Justine also on that. And that's just for information, just let people know. We've had people call during a fire in Perth. We had one person call the village office and said they didn't know the number to the fire department, so they thought they'd call us. So it's
number one.
so we'll just throw it out that we have numbers for stuff, and things just for communication.
This is for non-911.
Yes, yeah.
11E, UNNB workshop.
Yeah, there's two this week, and if Councilor has one's the I think just a version of that meeting that everybody went to on the fire service management. I did see that was there an EMO component to that one? No, there is I think in the last half hour of this one, there's an EMO component to this one that I'm going to sit in on tomorrow night. But I think the first two sessions were the exact same as what you already went to. Then there's one on Thursday night for the environmental network engagement session. For anyone that's interested, and I'll send the link out to that. You don't need to register for it. You can just log in through it. So I'll send that out to council.
Perfect, thank you. Is that it? Oh, can we have a motion to work here? You'll go up and adjourn. Thank you.
Stop the recording.
The music note thing, you send that to everybody?